Oh, it's you fellas. Well, the Adjutant General told me you would be coming by, and that we'd get a chance to talk. If you don't know who I am, my name is August Hiller. I was born in a town called Bremen. Anybody know where Bremen is? It's in Prussia. Yes, what some people are calling Germany these days. When I was very young, my family moved to the United States looking for a better opportunity. We wound up in your state of Wisconsin. I was born in 1825. How old does that make me? I thought you were students. You should know your mathematics. Well, how old does that make me? 192. How do you figure that? This is 1864. If I was born in 1825 and this is 1864, you got to do the math. 39 years old. Thank you very much. 3 years ago, several of the states of our glorious union decided they preferred life on their own. And they said, we are leaving. The word is called secession. They leave their union. And we say, that's no good. When President Lincoln, he calls for volunteers to put down this rebellion. I was one of those to answer the call. I enlisted as a private in September of 1861 at Camp Randall in Madison, Wisconsin. Today, I am First Sergeant of Company D of the 6th Wisconsin Infantry. I've been at this now as a soldier for a little over 3 years. I'm very tired. I'm ready for a break. I'm ready to go home to my family. I have a wife, a son, and a daughter whom I've never met. My wife was pregnant when I went off to the war. I've not seen my child yet. In the last 3 years, let's see, we've been in we've fought in over a dozen major engagements. We've been through a number of hardships, winters, where we sleep. Right now we are going into winter, right? But no, the generals, they're not letting us sleep in the comfortable winter quarters cabins we were supposed to build. We are on the move. We are on the move because a general named Sherman, he says, we are going to end the war. And most of us said, that sounds good to us. We were supposed to be, when we enlisted, we were going to be what they called 90-day men. What do you think that means? That's right, we were enlisted for 90 days. Our 90 days came and went 2.5 years ago. We are still here. We are still doing our duty for the president and for our new country. Most of us in my battalion, in the 6th Wisconsin, we are Germans. We have a couple of companies of Polish, and we have one company of Italians. That's mostly what we are. We got a bunch of Norwegians in here too. Olaf and Svens. But most of us are good Prussians. So what do you think? Do you think 3 years is too long to be in the military? As a volunteer? Do you know how much we make by month? Well, when I enlisted as a private, my pay was $11 a month. But they give me these fine clothes. They give me, hopefully a roof over my head. Sometimes it's made out of canvas. Most of the time, I just sleep under the stars. When the weather's good, we don't worry about the tents. We just put out our blankets under the stars. And what if it rains? That's what I've got this for. This is a rubber cloth. Helps me to keep the moisture off of my stuff and off me and keep me warm at night. If it's good weather, I put it underneath me so I can keep the dew from rising up into my blankets when I'm sleeping on the grass. Did you see the dew on the grass out here this morning? Imagine trying to sleep in that. You get very cold very quickly. So, I've told you mostly my story. Do any of you have questions? Yes, sir.
How hard is it to fight?
How hard is it to fight? Well, imagine this. Imagine you never get enough sleep. Imagine you are getting 5 hours of sleep a night. You are standing 2 to 3 hour shift of guard duty every night in your camp. Imagine then you go and you have to march 10, 15, 20 sometimes. The longest march we did with this battalion, we did in Virginia. And we did 27 miles in one day. And that was a time when we were between supply. My shoes wore out. I did 3/4 of that march barefooted, carrying all of my gear on gravel roads. My feet hurt for 7 days after I got new shoes. I had to buy shoes. Even these I'm wearing now. These are not army shoes. These are shoes I bought at the shoemaker. Because my army shoes, they only last sometimes 2 weeks. The contractors that are making these things for us, they're making more money than they're making quality. They're making garbage for us to put on our feet and on our bodies. It doesn't hold up. We do the marching all day long, and then we go do the fighting. When we do the fighting, it's very, very difficult. It's noisy. You cannot hear anything but the commands of your NCOs or your officers. All you can hear is the constant rumble of the guns, the cannons, and the small arms, and the occasional explosions of the rounds from the artillery in the field and over your head. How hard is it to fight? It's very hard. I'll tell you what, I'll show you something. 2 front rows of the theater, come up here. And then line up across the stage this way. Line up, it doesn't matter by height or alphabetical, doesn't matter. We are going to do something like we do every day. Every day we wake up, we fall in. It doesn't matter if the line goes out the door or not, we'll get it fixed. Try and make a straight line, huh? I don't care what they do, you know what a straight line is, yeah? Alright. Now here's the thing, I want you to line up so that your elbows are just touching. That you're not squeezed, and that you're not doing this to keep your elbows touching. Just comfortable, right? And then every morning, the first sergeant, me, I would come out before the officers, and I would take the roll call, and I would make sure you're all here, and I would make sure who is sick, and who is out on detached duty, or in the hospital, or wherever they are, and I would tell you this now. You are in one rank now. And I would say, in each rank, count 2, and I would walk the line, and you would start there, and you'd say 1, 2. Use your outdoor voice.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
It's always 1. Alright, now, what I would tell you now is I would say company left face. And you would face to the left. Now, if you are number 1, you would take a step to the left. If you are number 1, take 1 step to the left. Now take a step forward. Okay, at this point, now I would say in each rank, front, you turn back to the front, but you stay exactly where you are. So turn to face me. Yes, this is your front. Then I give the command, right dress. That means you cover down on the person to your right. So come on down, come on down, come on down, come on down. Just till you touch. Very good, keep coming, keep coming. Let me remove this obstacle here. Hey, deserters, get over there. There you go, using your minds. Very good. Now, you have just formed a company. Down if you are exactly almost the size of my company now. Now, when we started this war in 1861, my company was 107 men. We are now only this. Disease. Most of the men have gone from disease. Some have deserted. Many have been injured or killed. Now, at this point, get these lines straightened up, huh? Just touching the front of my musket. My rifle here. Good. The rear rank. If you take your forearm like this, and you just touch the person in front of you, no punching, just touching. That's how close you are. That's how close you fight. When you are fighting in the line of battle, this is how it is. Now imagine carrying all of this, trying to load and fire your weapon, all, especially for the rear rank, right? Very difficult. It's very tight. It's very hard to move. And you have to move this unit, this line, as one being. This is why when we aren't fighting and when we aren't marching and when we aren't sleeping or eating, guess what we're doing? We're doing drill. We're training. We're doing this. We are learning how to march. We are learning how to fight in the field. We have a number of different maneuvers that we can do in the field that help us move these large bodies of men around. We can march straight forward. We can march by either flank. We can make our company act like the spoke of a wheel or a gate and swing around this way. We have a number of ways we can do this. I will teach you, but we don't have 2 weeks. And that's how long it would take. But imagine this. Imagine trying to handle a 10-pound rifle, 40 rounds of ammunition, your caps. This is, some of you may have had at home the cap gun, right? This takes cap, just like your cap guns. And so we have a pouch for those. We have a pouch for ammunition. Imagine having to do all of that, and then still you have to be able to reach your water, and maybe you have to reach something in your haversack. This is where you keep usually your food. I'll tell you about that in a moment. All right. Now, if I was in the army, you all would make a sad appearance because you're not very military looking. Your lines are like a big snake. It should be a straight line. But that's okay, because you're not soldiers. Now, if this was after we had formed the company in the morning, I would write down all my returns. I would give my company captain the report saying who is here, who is absent, who needs a new cartridge box because your box broke, who needs new clothes because you're worn out, who needs a new pair of shoes. And the captain, that's his job to figure all that out. Now, once he's come and reviewed all of you in the morning, he looks over you and says, oh, you look terrible, go get some rest, or go get drilling, or whatever he's going to make you do. He would say, okay, go get breakfast. And I would give the command, attention, company, and you would come to attention. And then I would say, break ranks, march. And you would take one step backwards, off the line, and you would be free to return to your seat. Go ahead. Thank you for your assistance. So, I hope, sir, that answers your question about how hard was it to fight. Yes? Yes. Did that adequately answer your question? Very good. Who else has questions? Yes, sir.
What are you guys fighting for?
What are we fighting for? We are fighting to preserve the Union. We are fighting because the states in the South should not be allowed to leave. Some people ask me, are you fighting to free the slaves? I don't know. I've never seen a slave. I've never seen a black person. There were none in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm told there are some over in Chicago and Milwaukee, over to the west of us back home, but I've never seen them. Every once in a while we might see what they call contraband. Anybody know what contraband is? That is blacks who have escaped from the south, right? And they're living up in the northern cities. And the government says, even up until very recently, that it was okay to return them to the south so they could become slaves again. I don't necessarily approve one way or the other because I don't know how those people down there live. That's what we are learning right now as we are moving into the south. But Uncle Sherman, he's taking us down. The rumor is that we are going to Georgia. And we are going to leave a swath of destruction through Georgia. That is what we are being told. I don't know. I'm tired. I'm ready to go home. I don't care. One way or the other, what we do, as long as I get to go home to my family soon. So what are we fighting for? We're fighting to keep the states in the Union. The Union is stronger with all of its member states. If we let everybody just say, oh, we don't want to play anymore, we're going somewhere else, then all devolves to chaos. We don't have a nation. We have a bunch of little tiny countries trying to vie with one another for who gets to run things. That's no good. Trust me, that's how it was in Prussia. Who else? Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
Earlier you mentioned food and breakfast. What was your daily portion and...
Well, our way of living in the field was that the government issues our food, and that's every 3 days. So we get a pile of food, and we distribute it among the members of the company every 3 days. And that includes sometimes bacon, sometimes beef, sometimes dried peas or beans, dried fruit. Sometimes if we can get, we might get rice, we might get flour. They sometimes expect us to bake on our own. Nobody bakes in the field. The flour usually winds up in the fire. Sometimes maybe they might make, cornmeal's another good one. We do a lot of cornmeal. You can take cornmeal and bacon grease and a little bit of honey if you've got, and you mix it up into a dough. You let it sit in your frying pan overnight, and hopefully the bugs don't get into it too much. The next day, you take it, you put it on the fire. You wind up with a yummy, yummy little treat called a corn dodger. They fill your tummy, but there's not a lot of nutrition. You had a question?
How long does it take to fire the gun?
This I can do. After 3 years in the Army and doing this in over a dozen major engagements, I can put out 4 aim shots a minute with this. Now what it takes, and we don't have any right now because, well, the ammunition train is 15 or 20 miles behind us. We're kind of scraping through trying to get what we can. And every occasionally, one wagon will come up with ammunition for us, but my box has been empty for 2 days. And I'm out on guard duty with an unloaded weapon. How much sense does that make? To load and fire, we use a paper cartridge. So forget the days of the powder horn or the bullet bag or any of that stuff. You take a paper cartridge. It has your bullet, it has your gunpowder, all in one little tube of paper. You tear off the tab, that exposes the powder. You charge the powder into the barrel. You disengage the bullet, the ball from the paper. You thumb it into the barrel. Then you draw your rammer. You ram the cartridge with 2 motions. You remove the rammer. Again, we always use the little finger for this because guess what? Bad things come out of here. You never want to put your whole hand over it. Any of you young men hunt yet? You know the deal, right? That you never put your hands over the bad part of the gun, right? That's right. So we always return the rammer with the little finger. We drop the arm to the full extent. We pick it up this way. We reach into our cap pouch for a primer. Oh, I have one. There they are. This little brass cap. Inside is a little pellet of fulminate of mercury. And when we put it on here, we go here with the hammer. Then we drop this on the cone. Some people call it the nipple. We prefer the cone in the army. We put it on there, and now we are ready to fire. Almost. But at this point, we are here, right? So until we get a command from our company captain, we just stay right like this until he says either shoulder arms or ready. At ready, we come to the, we fully cock the weapon, and then we aim, and then we squeeze off around when we are given the command to fire. That's how this works. 3 to 4 shots per minute. Not very fast, is it? That's faster than it used to be, though. My father, he used a type of weapon called a flintlock when he fought in Prussia. Instead of this handy cap right here, you have flint and steel. The flint strikes the steel, it ignites a little bit of powder in a little pan where there's a hole through to the barrel. And that flash, you ever heard the phrase, a flash in the pan? That's what they're talking about right here. When that pan flashes, it ignites the powder in the barrel and discharges your weapon. That was 2 to 3 shots a minute back in those days. We are getting faster as our technology improves. Who else has a question? Somebody's got to have some. Yes, sir.
Where do you get your water?
Where do I get my water? Well, I get it out of my canteen. But partially, most of the time we get it out of streams and lakes and rivers, wherever we happen to have handy water supplies. Does it make us sick sometimes? Yes. Can it be deadly? Yes. Bad water. You've got to be very careful about your water. Some of the boys in my company, they say the water is better if you boil it before you put it in your canteen. Who's got the time for that? We wake up at 5:30 in the morning, we fall in, we take roll, we make breakfast. Breakfast is served by 6 or 6:30. Usually that's fried bacon, army hard bread. Anybody heard of hard bread? Or hardtack, that's another thing we call it. Hardtack. Flour, water, baking powder, and a little biscuit that break your teeth when you try to eat it. But you soak that in your bacon grease. You soak it in a little water first to soften it up, then you cook it in bacon grease. It's a lot like eating cooked bread or bread pudding, except no sweet. And then we make coffee. We make a lot of coffee. I make 2 or 3 meals a day. Hard bread, sweet coffee. Sugar. Sugar is a big part of our diet. For our coffee, we always eat it, drink it sweet. Where do you think we get our sugar from? No, because those people are in rebellion. They are not selling us the sugar. No. We get our sugar from out in the Pacific. That's right, the Sandwich Islands. Otherwise known as Hawai'i. Something like that. I've never been there, I don't know. The sugar is coming in from there because the southern states are not giving us or selling us any sugar anymore. The people out here that are growing sugar, they started, I'm told, as missionaries. And those missionaries came out here and they figured out how to support the war without actually going back. I will tell you that story in a few minutes when I'm somebody else. So, I suppose now is a good time to tell you about everything I'm wearing, right? So first of all, this rifle. This rifle is a variant on the 1861 model. This one was taken, does anybody know the name Samuel Colt? This gentleman Samuel Colt, he made handguns, he makes revolvers, right? Well, he got a bright idea. He bought up some tooling from a defunct factory, and he decided to start making long arms for the army on contract. And this one was made, let me see here, in Manchester, New Hampshire, by the Amoskeag Manufacturing Company. It's a 58 caliber rifled musket. 58 caliber. What do you think caliber means, huh? Anybody? Go ahead.
Inch.
That's right, it's hundredths of an inch. So almost 6/10 of an inch in diameter is this bullet. Over half an inch. So there's the rifle. The rifle, of course, comes with your next line of defense. The bayonet. The bayonet, if you are out of bullets, is your next best friend. There are instances, in fact, General McClellan, in his volume on the School of the Bayonet, how to teach people to use the bayonet, he says, there was an instance in the Crimea where 2 soldiers defended themselves against the simultaneous attack of 15 Russians. And they emerged unscathed, using only their bayonets. So the next thing I have, you wonder what this is, right? This is my bed. This is my bed. And my cookware, and my suitcase. Inside of this I've got spare socks, spare shirt, toothbrush, bathing kit, everything I need. This was a blanket from home. I'm lucky to have had it for so long. By a lucky accident of fate, it wound up in our baggage trains over winter quarters one year. I almost never got it back. This is one of my links to home. Right on top of this, you see this is my rubber blanket. When it rains, keeps the water off. When you go to bed at night, some of you smart people can still do this. It's very difficult for me. You lay this on the ground, you lay your blanket, you fold up in both, and that's your head. So here's my canteen, full of probably rusty water, because the water, this is sheet iron, right? And the water rusts inside. It's rusty. And sometimes depends on where you get your water from. If you get it from a spring, maybe a few hours after the water's in the canteen, it starts to smell or taste like rotted eggs because there was sulfur in the water. Right? It's terrible. It's not very good tasting. This is my haversack. When they issue my rations, anything we don't cook right away or eat right away goes into this. I can carry this for several days. Inside I've got all of the things I need to cook and eat. I've got my coffee cup. I've got my coffee. I've got, what else? Oh, I've got some bread. I've got some hard bread in here. You see the black spots? That's mold. That's how it gets issued to us. And we eat it anyway. Because we are hungry. When you march 20, 25 miles a day, you work up an appetite. That's good. Oh, I think that was beef jerky once. I'll cook it and find out later. This is our other thing. Has anybody ever seen this? This is tea. This is tea. The Chinese, they send us tea like this. It's in a brick. They press all of the ground tea off the floor of the tea factories into a cake. And it's like trying to carve up a block of stone to get your tea off of it in the morning to make it, if you don't like coffee. It's a lot easier. Sometimes when the supply chain is far away from us, tea is far preferable because it's accessible. And here I've got a few cooking implements. I've got a little pot holder made out of an old leather belt, so I can grab the edge of my pot off of the fire without burning my fingers. I've got about the only seasoning right here. This is a little salt. What else is here? Oh yes, what do you think this is? Yes, but even more importantly, canteens get old, we throw them in the fire. We break down the solder joint around the two halves, and two men now get the frying pan and a dinner plate out of the deal. We were some smart boys. We figured it all out in the field. What do you think I eat with? This is my handy little, I found this at a little dry goods store. Fork and knife right there. Now you got to put them back together in one piece, right? Mine's a little tough to put together because I bent the teeth so that I can put it on my fry pan here. I have a pan handle. You do enough time in the field, you learn little tricks that help you make life easier. This jacket is manufactured by my state. That's why it's good quality. It's not a federal government contractor. These jackets are very, very warm. What do you think they're made of? That's right, wool. What do you think they're lined with? This jacket has a lining, not only made out of cotton quilting, but out of denim like you make in your blue jeans. You think this is warm in the summertime? You would be right. So that's kind of what we are doing here. It's the military thing. My shirt, this brightly colored shirt, right, is from home. The shirts they give us in the army are made of wool and they are scratchy and uncomfortable and nobody likes to wear them. You have a question?
Yeah. Do you guys use horses in war?
We do use horses, but I am in the infantry. Do you know what the infantry is?
No.
We are foot soldiers. We march everywhere. However, the artillery and the cavalry both use horses everywhere. Artillery, the big guns, the 3-inch ordnance rifle, they bring a 4-horse team to pull that. 4 horses to hold the cannon and the limber and all the ammunition and all of the crew. 5 men on the crew. The cavalry, 1 man, 1 horse. They are fast. They go out, they do a lot of, they are kind of the eyes of the infantry. They ride out long distance ahead and find out what's out there. Is the enemy out there? Are we in danger? Yes, sir, you have another question.
Have you seen a tank?
Like a water tank? Yes, like a water tank, like you put your water in here. In my company, in our company wagon, we have a large barrel that we keep water in case we need to refill our canteens and we are away from a stream. And that's the water tank. Does anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
How far away can you get gunshots from?
15, 17 miles sometimes. Our battalion, we went into the fight at Gettysburg. Anybody heard of Gettysburg? July 1st, 1863, last year. We were up in Hanover, 33 miles away from Gettysburg, when we were called to double quick time. And we made the whole march at double quick time, almost a jog. And we could hear the early fighting. Buford's cavalry and Heath's infantry and Hill's division getting involved on Seminary Ridge. And we knew that we were in for a fight because it was getting very hot, very quick. Lots and lots of guns coming up, lots of noise in the distance. And we fought there for 3 days. We were right at the center of the line where we thought we were safe. We thought we were completely safe because That man Lee, he was going after the right flank and he was going after the left flank, and he was trying to roll up our flanks. And we said, oh, we are right in the middle, we are perfectly safe. Then on the third day, what did he do? He sends all of Pickett's division against us. We were piled, our battalion, other battalions, we were piled 7, 8, 9 men deep right there at the stone wall. The men in the back, they were just loading muskets and passing them forward and loading another one and passing it forward. And the men up on the wall, 2 ranks, they were just firing their muskets as quick as they could and passing them back. I spent that whole fight behind the lines, watching my men, taking an occasional musket. That's part of my job. As a sergeant, I was not a first sergeant then, I was a third sergeant. And I stand behind the lines, and when somebody says, Sergeant, my musket is broken, I say, give it me. And I take it back and I take it apart and I figure out what's wrong with it. And if I can get it fixed in the field, I do, and if I don't, we take it back out of service until we can get it to our quartermaster, who gets it fixed for us. So yes, we can hear the fighting a long ways away. Any last questions? 2 questions, yes.
How do you guys communicate? You guys don't have like radios.
Well, there are a number of ways we communicate. Have you heard of the telegraph?
Oh.
Telegraph is a good way to communicate. On the battlefield, though not very easy because no telegraphs. On the battlefield, there are a number of ways. Runners are a good one. One mounted runner on a horse, he can deliver information through the lines. The other is the signal corps. Anybody heard of the signal corps? These men are what we call the wigwags, because they take flags and they wig them and they wag them to send us messages. Young lady, I have one more question.
What are all the major battles you were in? Like Little Bighorn or
I'm not familiar with this Little Bighorn. Well, let's see. We were at, we enlisted in abandoned in 61. September, that's summer of 62. Spring of 62, we were at Fort Donelson on the Mississippi River under a man called Grant. Then we went down to Shiloh. And then we were reassigned. We got assigned to the Army of the Potomac, and we wound up fighting in September of 1862 at a place called Antietam Creek. Then we went winter quarters. Then that winter we found Fredericksburg. We defended, we attacked out of Mary's Heights. We came in right behind the Irish Brigade, a bunch of Irish immigrants. Then let's see, Chancellorsville in May of 63. Then we have Gettysburg. Then the Wilderness. Then we are reassigned to Sherman's bombers, right? Then we come down to the Carolinas and Tennessee. We fight at Lookout Mountain, at Chattanooga, at Murfreesboro, then Chickamauga. And now we are on our way, according to Mr. Sherman, we are on our way to the ocean. I haven't seen the ocean since I emigrated here at age 6. I want to see what that ocean looks like down there in the South. And I want to see that part of the South and see if it's really worth fighting for to keep in the Union. Last question. Yes?
Were the muskets the only weapons you guys had?
Pretty much. Some of the boys, when they came to war, they brought a little derringer, a little pepper box, or a little pistol, or a big knife, thinking, oh, I'm going to cut the enemy. Those were too heavy and too hard to use in the field, and they wind up getting thrown off on a long march. The secret to being an effective infantryman in this army is to travel light and fast. You notice I had no backpack? I have a pack. The government gave me a pack. It's back in our wagons, almost 30 miles in our rear. The battalion major, he says, strip down everything but the very most necessary things. Blanket, uniform, your traps, your food, your water. And that's what you're going the next 30 miles on. And we did. Maybe our wagons will catch up to us one of these days and I can get my pack back and I can get another spare shirt. My shirts are getting a little, it's hard to wash them sometimes. So last question. Thank you very much for your questions. Now I'm going to change personas. Most of you have seen me around the campus. My name is Joel. I'm Ariana's dad. And let's take a few minutes while we're at it, since we're doing this, and talk about this American Civil War in Hawaii. I already hinted at it, sugar, right? So when the Civil War started in 1861, there were a lot of people here in Hawaii that wanted to do their part. Anybody, most of you guys live up here in either Ka'u or Volcano area, right? Anybody live in Hilo and make the drive up here? That's right, Dylan lives Hilo. Mr. Wells lives Hilo. You live Mountain View. Well, in 1861, there was a dude that lived down in Hilo. His name was Thomas Spencer. And Thomas Spencer, at the time, he was a ship's chandler. You know what a chandler is? He's a candle maker. And an outfitter. He outfitted whaling ships. Because guess what kind of oil we keep our muskets clean with? Whale oil. Guess what we put in our lamps? Whale oil. Kerosene hasn't been thought of yet. So when the war starts, Thomas Spencer's like, oh, I've got to do my part. And he gets so fired up that he reaches into his bank account and he takes out enough money to raise, outfit, and equip and train a company of infantry. He was going to take them back around South America into Chesapeake Bay up to Washington, D.C., and he was going to have them enlisted into service for the Federal Army to fight for Lincoln and liberty and all that stuff. They called themselves Spencer's Invincibles. They were a little less than 100 men. Their roster shows about 85 enlistees. And they got as far as the 4th of July parade in Hilo in 1861. And they marched in the parade, and Captain Spencer was so proud of himself for getting these boys into fighting shape. And then Prime Minister Wilcox comes along and says, or no, Wiley. Minister Wiley comes along and says, Captain Spencer, perhaps you forgot, but the Kingdom of Hawaii has declared neutrality in this fight. You're not allowed to send anybody anywhere. The only newspaper article I've ever found in researching this tells me that Spencer burst into tears in the streets of Hilo at the news that he couldn't take his boys out to fight. So he disbands that company, and he gets to thinking about it. Well, what can I do? He owned a big piece of property that he got from a chiefess and her husband. You might know the chiefess's name because most of us drive on that road fairly frequently. Her name was Kino Ole. She married a missionary preacher by the name of Benjamin Pittman. And Pittman owned a big piece of land on the other side of the Wailuku River, over what was called originally the Amaulu, Ahupua'a. You guys know what Ahupua'a, right, Art? Yeah? The Ahupua'a over there that borders up against the Wailuku River is called Amaulu. And so Spencer bought that piece of land from the Pittmans and from Kino Ole, and he was running it as a farm. Even by the 1850s, he had brought in a bunch of Chinese and Portuguese labor. They called it the Chinese plantation for a long time because of that. But he comes in and he says after this, he says, I know what I can do to make my contribution to the war. He says, I can grow sugar. Now, sugar been here before him? Yes, it was a canoe plant. Polynesians brought sugar with them when they first started living here. In fact, in the Kumulipo, in the Hawaiian creation chant, one of the verses says, Hanau ke ko ula, born was the red sugar cane. So it was a canoe plant. And old Spencer, he said, hey, I can grow that plant. I can refine it. I can package it. I can ship it back to the U.S. And hello, cha-ching, time to print the money, because guess what? I can name my own price. Because the federal government needs the sugar worse than they need to worry about the price. So he kind of starts this trend off, but other people are getting the same idea at the same time. In 1862, right around the time the Battle of Shiloh was fought, Total production of sugar in the Hawaiian Kingdom was 217 tons. By 1867, 2 years after the war's end, total production of sugar in the Kingdom of Hawaii, 112,000 tons. It was a huge increase in a very short period of time. So when you guys read in your history books in school about how King Cotton, anybody heard the phrase King Cotton? We got to include Queen Sugar as a part of that. Cotton was king, sugar was queen. It put Hawaii on the map as an agricultural producer of sugar. That was because of that war. There was one other major industry in the U.S. that got its start from that war. Anybody got a guess? It's 5 points if you got a guess. And whoever gets the most points at the end of all this wins. Are you ready for this? Nothing! Dylan, what was your guess?
Guns?
No. Here's a hint. They taste really good on the grill.
Food.
No. Steaks. The cattle ranching industry in the American West. That's why, you guys know Paniola, right? That's why in Hawaii, cowboys have been around longer than they have in the mainland U.S. Because that industry gets started here in the early 1800s, 1810 or thereabouts, and it doesn't get started in the U.S. until the late 1860s. So you guys, that's a tradition to be proud of out here. You got cowboys before anybody else in the U.S. did. So that's why sugar is so important to the American Civil War, and that's how the Civil War put Hawaii on the map as a sugar producer. How's my time? Did I use up all my time? Pretty close. How's everybody doing? Any other questions? No other questions? All right, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Jim then. I got a little bit of a mess to clean up so you guys can have the show.
Guys, can we